Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? I hope you're all doing well. I'd like to say that I've returned fully rested, but I am anything but, because I spent a large part of the weekend hatching plans and responding to issues within the demolition and construction industry. It has been absolutely relentless of late. I'm just going to press a button. Bear with me a sec. There we are. That's the one I wanted. It's been absolutely relentless. Just this morning, I've dropped my latest weekly column, which deals with the fact that we have, at least in my opinion, become desensitized to site deaths. You can read that column over on demolitionnews.com. And just this morning, I've had to react quickly to the latest revelations from the Competition and Markets Authority over their collusion investigation into the UK demolition industry. If there's anyone watching from the UK demolition industry's top table, please bear in mind, you claimed there was no case to answer, that this is a storm in a teacup, and one or two even suggested that I was making the whole thing up. I really, really hope you're watching today, as the whole sordid details of this cartel are laid bare for all to see. Now, that would be enough for most people, but I'm a man who likes to experiment, a man for whom the word enough is never quite enough. So this weekend, I came up with this. Unite the Union, the largest trade union in the UK, has launched an independent inquiry into allegations that some of their officials colluded with the construction industry to blacklist workers. Unite the Union, which is an amalgamation of several different unions, including the Transport and General Workers Union, Amicus and UCAT, has launched an inquiry to investigate whether or not its trade union officials colluded with the construction industry to blacklist workers. This inquiry comes after a historic settlement in 2016. Construction workers secured payouts totalling £75 million after they discovered that construction firms had unlawfully compiled confidential files on their political and employment activities. Construction firms including Sir Robert McAlpine and Balfour Beatty paid compensation and issued an unreserved and sincere apology to the blacklisted workers. However, during the High Court litigation, documents were disclosed, and media reports appeared that suggested that some union officials had been aware of and may have colluded with the blacklisting of their own members. The inquiry is now sitting, and the team is urging any construction worker who believe that they were a victim of blacklisting linked to trade union collusion to come forward. This is a significant moment for Unite the Union and the wider labour movement, and we will be keeping a close eye on any developments in this story. Now, I know what you're thinking. You spent the whole weekend marrying some words and photos together in a vaguely interesting way. Let me assure you, it is way smarter than that. For one thing, I didn't write that script. Artificial intelligence did it for me, but under my guidance, obviously. Still not impressed? How about if I tell you that wasn't actually me speaking? That too was AI. And now I realise I don't say inquiry, I say inquiry. So there's still a few bugs to iron out, but I have spent hours training the system to sound just like me, and it's not perfect, but it is pretty damn close. So close, in fact, that I'm kicking around the idea of another daily industry update show that is powered almost entirely by AI. Been talking to the ladies and gents over in our WhatsApp group about this over the weekend, and the current thinking is that we try to do that at 7 p.m. of an evening. So you've done your day's work, you get home, you want to kick back, put your feet up and find out what the latest and greatest news in the industry is, but you can't be asked to read through pages and pages of websites. AI and my voice will allow you to consume that in about 10 minutes. If anybody else has got any thoughts on that, please let me know. Just so you know, also, that news piece, it was a test just to prove that the AI worked and that everything worked as it should. But that story was for real. If you know of anyone that believes they were blacklisted as a result of actions by Unite the Union, then please get in touch with Unite the Union, because there is an ongoing investigation that is underway now. Now, without further ado, let me, when I can find it, let me roll the new intro and get this show on the road. And don't forget, if you'd like to leave me something in the chat, please leave us your biggest pet peeve. I'll get to it later in the show during our Gripe of the Day section. Now, it is Monday, the 24th of April. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's, it says here, new look show. It was new on Friday, not so much now, but in today's show, XCMG unveils a mining giant. Destructive Arts Down Under. John Deere leaves a legacy, plus Bobcat goes rogue. And we'll get to all of that in just a second. But first, let's trawl back through history and the mists of time to see what was happening on this day in history. On this day in 1898, Spain declared war on the United States. Talk about biting off more than you can chew. 1916, Ernest Shackleton and a 5-man crew set sail for Elephant Island to rescue the ice-trapped ship Endurance. In 1953, Winston Churchill was knighted by the Queen. And in 1969, Paul McCartney said there was no truth in rumours that he was dead. Well, 50 years later, he's still continuing to refute it. And in 2022, Emmanuel Macron defeated Marine Le Pen to be re-elected as French president. Now we can start the show properly. I think Ken Hatchell may just have to look at the pictures today. The rain is so heavy here, I can't hear you speaking. Some would say that's a good thing. And he is off to the Welsh Construction Show on Wednesday. Should be a good show. Well, let's hope it's the bits of it that are outdoors. Let's hope the sun shines. And if it doesn't shine, then I hope you're indoors for a lot of it. Now, last week we showed you a concept autonomous truck from XCMG that showed us just a bit of a glimpse of a mining future. Today, we're going to show you an XCMG mining excavator that is very much of today. That took me by surprise. I've just responded to Stephen Guthrie. Good morning, Stephen. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. But I have said it before, and I'm going to say it again. The Chinese are coming, and they're coming for the mining sector. Watch this space. As our friend Gary has just said, wow, that's some big coal seams. Yeah, we don't seem to worry so much about coal these days. Our Chinese friends still seem quite keen on it. Now, I have been kicking myself ever since ConExpo about the new equipment that I didn't get to see. Sure, I came back with terabytes of film with which to entertain, inform, and enthrall, but there was a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't get to see because of time pressures. And one of the machines that I regret missing is this one.
The next innovation doesn't come by copying someone else or by staying comfortable. It is birthed out of a challenge to the conventional, a belief that something better is out there. Maybe it can be discovered by looking at old problems in new ways. And for every idea we pursue, there are hundreds left on the table. At Bobcat, our innovation isn't just part of our history, it's what we're doing every day. spirit of our first invention lives on in the concepts of tomorrow. From the drawing board to the dirt pile, we continue to reinvent compact equipment so you can do what you do better. We are Bobcat.
Yes, while I missed the Rogue entirely, our mate Peter Haddock thankfully did not. So if you'd like to see his take on the machine, you can head on over to his YouTube channel using the link that I've just posted in the chat. While you're there, please be sure to subscribe because Peter generates some fantastic videos. So hop on over to YouTube and check out the Rogue and hit the subscribe button while you're there. Right, it's time to take a trip down under to see how the noble art of demolition is being applied appropriately in the partial demolition of an arts centre in Melbourne in Australia. Delicate project, skillfully tackled. I think you'll agree. Gary Muir has just said in the chat, it's funny, when you mention a name like Bobcat, you just automatically relate it to a skid steer. Like we don't say it's a Dyson, we automatically call it a Hoover. That surely is the point when you really have market dominance. And it frustrates me, and this may be a gripe for the day for some point in the future, but whenever there's a piece of construction equipment on the TV in the UK, particularly on the TV news, it is always a JCB. It might have Caterpillar or Komatsu or Volvo written down the side, but it's a JCB. That's when you know you really made it, I would guess, when people just associate your name with a particular type of thing. So, yeah, that was a Bobcat. It wasn't a skid steer, but it was a Bobcat.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
It is almost time for our gripe of the day, or it's for my gripe of the day. I've not seen any gripes in the chat yet. If you've got one, please let me know what it is. And if yours is better than mine, which it wouldn't be hard, then please let us know and we will get to that and we'll do mine another day. However, some companies are happy just to move muck. Others, meanwhile, are not content with just moving the earth. They are looking to safeguard the earth.
We are all excited about what we do. We work on the waterfront and the bay. We build a lot of marine projects, and we do a lot of work on the wetland right next to the beach. So It's a great area to work and it's exciting stuff. Who wouldn't want to work by the ocean like this and work on the coast all the time? My name is Mike Furby. I'm the president of Marathon Construction and the owner. The main benefit of these types of projects are that we create a new ecosystem by expanding the wetland modules and creating habitats for protected and endangered species, including the fish and the birds. We augment these projects with recreational components like horse trails, bike trails, and interpretive centers that create an educational park to the general public and the surrounding communities. We've been in business for 45 years, so we've developed a fantastic group of engineers and management people. We're a family construction company, right? We all work together.
All projects are a puzzle to me because there's a lot of different parts that you got to put together, and they all coincide with each other to make the finished product. I practice every day when I come out on the job site. Every project is not exactly the same, so once you're in the seat and you have to adjust to the conditions of the project, that's where your practice begins. I love the environmental work. I love coming back 10 or 15 years later and looking at all the landscape that's changed, all the new growth, ducks and birds. Everyone that I've come in contact with up here in Del Mar has been very appreciative of the work we do, and they really enjoy it. It gives them new walking paths to places where they couldn't have gone before. Aesthetically, from the highway, it looks beautiful. I really enjoy coming back over time to see the finished product.
There's a lot of attention paid to how well are we taking care of the environment with our operation. There's a lot of forethought and planning and sequencing that goes into attacking this type of job to make sure that what we're doing supports the ultimate goal, which is a restoration effort. It's not about building a building, building a highway, building an airport. It's about getting plants to grow and specific habitats to flourish out here. There is a very keen eye to how well the equipment performs or how consistently it performs. Deere has proven to us over the years that it consistently run in this type of environment. High quality equipment and world-class service help make this job go.
In the state of California, they're the leader on greenhouse gas and climate action implementation of electric equipment and electric vehicles. I think we're going to see an industry that transforms from carbon emitting machinery to electric machinery. And from what I've seen, John Deere's on the cutting edge, which I'm excited about because I think that's where the industry is going to go. We always continually try to be better. Complacency is not in our vocabulary. We try to stay on the top. And we do that by working with people of similar interests, and that's why we've bonded so well with John Deere and RDO equipment. We've worked with them for 20 years, so it's been a phenomenal relationship. Working with someone like that, when you bring it all together, it's just magic.
Yeah, it really is a legacy project, and I'd like to think we'll be seeing more of those in the coming years as we harness the skills of construction to help safeguard the world of tomorrow. Now, I'm going to go to my gripe of the day, but I'm going to throw up Craig Williams' gripe of the day. Good morning, Craig. Craig says, when you go to your work vehicle on a Monday to find the internal light was left on, and yes, battery is flat, go to the battery pack, that's also flat. All good reasons for a gripe, but I've got another one, and it's going to be coming up just as soon as I can find the right button. After this. Now, my latest gripe is very specific, and ironically, it's about the use of non-specific language. And in particular, I'm thinking about the non-specific language used by the police. What the hell are you talking about? Now, I find that we were travelling in an easterly direction. That mode of speech is annoying enough, but that pales into insignificance when compared to the news bulletins in which they refuse to say something that is clear for us all to see. They arrest a celebrity, for example, but rather than saying, we've arrested such and such footballer, they insist on describing him as a 28-year-old male, even though we can actually see who precisely that 28-year-old male is. CCTV footage appears to show the assault of a woman by a male youth. Appears? We're We've just watched a guy punch a woman in the head. Why are you not convinced? Why is it appears? And the suspect in a school shooting is thought to have taken his own life. What was your first clue? The corpse in the car without a head, but holding an assault rifle? Why do they insist? I'm shouting now. Why do they insist on treating us like we can't actually handle the facts? If you've got any more, please let us know in the chat. I'm into gripes at the moment. I have many. I'm writing about one of them literally before we came on air this morning. Now, you can obviously leave us a gripe by typing it into the chat. You can send me an email, but I would much prefer if you would use our online voicemail service, which is called SpeakPipe. It is called speakpipe.com/demolition news. You can go there and you could leave a message in your own voice of up to 90 seconds in length. Love to hear from you. Thank you very much indeed. That's a good gripe, Mark. I listen. There are plenty more where that one came from. Yes, I'd love to hear yours. Anyway, what really grinds your gears? What gets your goat and generally butters your parsnips? I may have invented that last one, but the Daily Gripe will return very, very soon. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. And I'll see you again very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'll see you on the other side of this for what is now known as the Craic. And before we get to that, here is one final word from our sponsors. Now, if you were here on Friday, you will know that there was supposed to be something appearing alongside me that failed. Guess what? Yep, failed again. No idea what's going on with that, but yes, it has failed again. Somewhat frustrating, given the new look. Right, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to the very, very beginning. I was going to say through the mist of time. I'm talking about like half an hour ago, but I'm going to go back to the beginning. Ken Hatcher, he's enjoying some typically Welsh weather down in Wales. It is chucking it down, apparently, to the point where he can't even hear me, which, as I mentioned earlier, some may actually see as a benefit. Dan Cullen's here as well. Morning, Dan. Thank you for joining us. Gary Muirhead, forever welcome. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, gang, he says. Thank you very much indeed, Gary, and welcome to the show. Dan Cullen, yes, soon to be the end of another month. Let me think. It is 11:24. This time next week, I'll be in Verona. Our flight is like 7 o'clock in the morning, so by this time next week, assuming we aren't delayed, and assuming customs don't take offence at the way that I look, I will be in Verona. Won't be going to the show for another day, but I will be in Verona. Keep your eyes peeled for that. Craig Williams is here as well. I'm going to get back to Craig as well, one of the winners of one of our Plantworks competitions. We'll come back to that in a second. There's Rob Thompson. Morning, Rob. Good morning, Mark, and all the crew. The crew are here in force. Now, when I said good morning to Craig Williams earlier, I asked him how he was getting on with his Plantworks hat. He responded, "It's itchy, apparently." I promise. There are 2 dogs in my house, but I promise, A, that hat that I sent you came out of a sealed bag, and B, my dogs don't have fleas. Itchy hat, that's all I can say. There's Jim Turner, our friend from up in the wilds. Morning, peeps, he says. Good morning, Jim. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Nick Drew is in the house. The Diggerman blogger himself. Morning, Nick. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Hope you're fitting well, my friend. And there is Luke Carney, who must be looking forward to Plantworks. It's drawing inexorably closer. When I look at Plantworks, it's like, oh, yeah, I'm off to... Not that I get excited about Peterborough, you understand. Not quite the same as Las Vegas or Verona, but, oh, yeah, I'm off to Peterborough very, very soon. I would imagine Lou is actually running around like a headless chicken right about now, because she's now down to... I don't know, a month, just over a month before they throw open the doors and hopefully Plantworks take shape once again. Morning, Mark Whiting. Good morning, Mark. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And there is Ken Hatcher enjoying the weather. The rain is so heavy here, I can't hear you speaking. And one of the things that I learned the other day, I've got this microphone, believe it or not, this microphone is actually set to its lowest possible setting. despite that, it picks up everything. As somebody pointed out, I dare not emit gas, shall we say, because the microphone would most definitely pick it up. So as you're looking at me now, I am sat here clenched. I'm generally clenched, but even more so. Done my day's work at 7 p.m, if only. We're on summer hours now. Work till it's dark and then tool up in the dark. Yeah, going back to that, I don't envy you that one bit, Jim, but just going back to that. That comment relates to me showing you that blacklisting story. So, when I first started, that music sounds loud to me. I don't know if it's loud to you, but I'm going to turn it down. It's because I'm playing it through the microphone, I think, but hopefully that's a bit more manageable for everybody. So when I first started playing around with this artificial intelligence system, one of the things it allows you to do, so if I record, for example, I record a video, like today's video, and I listen to it back, and let's say I mentioned the fact that, let's say the fines handed down to those involved in the CMA debacle were 16 million when I meant 60 million. The AI allows me to go back, highlight that 16 million, and replace it with a voice that sounds remarkably like mine with 60 million. So I've done that. I've done that a couple of times, and I've used it, and it works, and everything else. And then over the weekend, I was sat here thinking, I wonder just how clever it is. I wonder how much you can make it do. See, the issue that I have is, I know Fred works on some of our fancy video stuff, but this show is very much me. I script it, I produce it, I present it, and everything else. And it takes up, it's basically a full-time job. So I've been thinking about how we expand our output and our reach and everything else. And I have been hankering after doing some other bits and pieces. You've already seen us using a degree of AI with our robot Reg, the roving robot reporter Reg, who is now going over to our construction equipment news show. And that basically was me being able to just type a script and then letting an artificial intelligence voice fill in the gaps for me, which is fine. However, if you couple that with some other bits of AI that we've been playing around with here, all of a sudden you have a whole new avenue to pursue. So my plan basically is like that blacklisting story, and we've done another one on Michael Gove pursuing payments from the cladding companies that were involved in the Grenfell Tower disaster. If you'd like to go and see that one, you can do so over at demolitionnews.com. Those are only a trial. They're both proper stories, and they're both properly produced, but they are just trials. So the plan basically, when I get back from Verona, is that on a daily basis, I will bring together 3, 4, possibly even 5 stories, shove the whole lot through AI, spit it out the other end, turn it into literally a news update. So despite what Jim Turner says, it will go out at 7, but you don't have to watch it at 7. So the idea is that you've done your hard day's work, you've been out of touch, you haven't had your finger on the industry pulse. You can sit down, kick back with a cup of coffee or something stronger, hit the play button, and myself, although I won't be on screen, myself and our artificial intelligence will deliver you the day's news. That's the plan. If anybody's got any thoughts on that, I'd love to hear about it. There's Stephen Guthrie. Morning, Stephen. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Anybody else going to the Welsh Construction Show on Wednesday? Should be a good show. I wish I could make it, but yeah, last knockings here and trying to get ready to go to Samota, I'm afraid. Mick Norton says good morning. Good morning to you as well, Mick. There is Craig Williams' gripe of the day: flat batteries. There are very few things that annoy me more. Big coal seams. I'm obviously Chinese machine. I'm fairly sure the coal mine was in Mongolia. Could be wrong, but I'm fairly sure it was. If you'd like to go and see that Bobcat Rogue in greater detail, you can do so using that link that takes you straight to Peter Haddock's YouTube channel. Be sure to hit the subscribe button while you're there. Ken Hatcher's morning is growing increasingly bad. There you are. Let's have a look. Yes, now let's talk about coal. Let's talk about coal, baby. sex, right? We don't agree. Yes, we don't agree with using dirty coal and sign up being squeaky clean to save the planet. Then buy most of the stuff from a country that still burns coal and pollutes the planet more than anyone else. Therefore, making ourselves poorer and then richer. Oh, and yes, I can really see the logic behind this. I'm just some thicky digger driver, but I've got a better grasp on how to run a country than those twats in politics. I suppose you can have that as... Not sure where that goes after that. Possibly his gripe of the day. It's a good point, though. It is a good point. It's not practicing what you preach or not preaching what you practice. We are talking about saving the planet here. The climate change thing is a global crisis. You cannot shut UK and European fossil fuel power stations and then continue to buy product at increasing rate from countries that are still burning coal like it's going out of fashion. It is going out. It's gone out of fashion here, and yet they're still burning it. And apparently, that's just dandy. Yeah, Jim Turner for Prime Minister, I say. Let's have a look. See the fine that farmer got for the damage he did to a riverside and tree removal. I did not see that, but I will go and have a look. Nice looking deer ADT, says Steve Williamson. Morning, Steve. Incidentally, I'm not going to give the game away. I will leave him to do so. But Steve and Ed, the dynamic duo, are working on some stickers featuring their handsome faces and their trademark sunglasses. Look out for them because they are brilliant. Honestly, keep an eye out for them. And a year's jail time too, wasn't it? This is a case that's passed me by. I will have a good look. That's a good gripe mark. It really does grind my gears. Particularly when they show you somebody being led away in handcuffs. And you can see precisely who it is. It might be a famous footballer. It might be Johnny Depp on a drunken rampage or whatever it might be. We can see who it is. We know who it is. And yet they refuse to admit who it is. Is it because they don't recognise them? I don't think so. Did everyone get the warning message yesterday? As I think my gripe that it shows you the government is watching everyone. I did get mine. In actual fact, I think there were 4 members of my family all sat in the same room at the same time. We all got them simultaneously. My thought on that was, why now? But back in the day, I grew up spent my formative years in a town called Belmont, top end of Sutton in Surrey. And if you came out the end of my block and turned right about, I don't know, 400 or 500 yards away, there was an old air raid siren, big pole with an air raid siren on it. And I think once a year, if memory serves me correctly, they used to sound the air raid siren, basically to make sure that it still worked, I guess. Now, this was the 80s, height of the Cold War. Even our music was influenced by the fact that Russia could bomb us at any moment. We had information films to tell us what to do in the event of a nuclear blast and so on down the line. All of that seemed to have gone away. All of that seems to have just dissipated. And now, all of a sudden, we are testing the modern equivalent of the air raid siren. What do the government know? I'm not one for conspiracy theories, but why now? Bearing in mind the ability to send a message to a mobile phone is not exactly newfangled. Why did it need testing? Any thoughts on that? Please let me know. Dan Collins, why do they say it's free speech, free country, when actually it's not? As you have to follow orders by police, government and your work bosses and cashless society, as we had 2 stores, went to at the weekend, wouldn't accept cash at all. Local Costa didn't accept cash, so is cash on its way out? I think cash is definitely on its way out. To the point where I know I'm at the point now, obviously you do a lot of payments by contactless. And every once in a while you get the notification to say you actually have to put your PIN in. My PIN is logged in my head. And no, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but my PIN is logged in my head. But I have another PIN number for getting cash from the hole in the wall, from the ATM. I don't know what that number is. It's that long since I required cash I don't know what that number is. I have it, but I don't know what the number is. And to give you an example, myself and my wife went to Greece on holiday for 10 days last year, back in September last year. And we spoke at the airport about the usual thing of going to the Bureau de Change and getting some euros to take with us to spend in Greece. We didn't. And in actual fact, as it turns out, we didn't use cash once. We did an entire holiday without spending cash once. I did exactly the same thing in ConExpo, even paying tips to Uber drivers and waitresses and stuff like that. Everything by card. I think cash, the days of cash are numbered. Dan Cullen, your phone listening to everything you say, even when it's on airplane mode. Just test it by sitting and talking about buying something that you've never mentioned before. Give it a few minutes and see how directed all the advertising is towards you that you were just talking about. Yeah, absolutely right. See it so many times. Now, stand by your beds, people. We have Lucani in the chat on a regular basis. She's an old school friend of my wife. She's an old friend of mine as well. So no great surprise that she turns up. However, it just got official. The Plantworks Construction Equipment Exhibition is watching us right now. Now, although it's obviously there's a person behind that, but that is an exhibition, but you still get the welcome confetti. Welcome, 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 welcome to the Plantworks Construction Exhibition, and thank you for joining us. And on the subject of the Plantworks Construction Exhibition, on Thursday this week, that is just 3 days from now, I will be joined on this very show by none other than Rob Oliver, the man whose brainchild was the Plantworks Construction Equipment Exhibition, and who is still very much pulling the strings there as well. So please, if you've got any questions, any comments, any suggestions about the Plantworks exhibition, aside from can you not make it rain, that would be a good one. But if you've got anything you'd like to add or anything you'd like to ask Rob, then please be here on Thursday. Unfortunately, Won't Make Well show wasn't greatly advertised. Yeah, I can't say I'm overly surprised at that, given that it is the Welsh show. But going back to, does anybody remember the old CMPE events? They used to have one at Haydock Park, for example. I'm trying to remember where the other one. There was another one a bit further south. There was one that used to take place up in Scotland, which I think evolved to become Scotland as well. But there used to be these CMPE events, and they were local. So the one at Haydock was very much for the northwest of the country, but everybody that could travelled as well. Had I known more about the Welsh show, I may well have made it, and aside from the fact that I'm going to Italy and I've got a lot to do before then. Nick Norton, do you feel comfortable with AI dictating your show content stories? I would rather be influenced by data input from a human source. Okay, so it's a very good point. It's a good point, well made, and I do need to point out exactly how this works. So with the story that we played at the beginning of the show about blacklisting of union members back in the day, I took 3 lots of reputable sources. I know one was the Unite the Union, its own website. I think one was, I'm trying to do this from memory, I think one was the Building Magazine website, and there was another one, may well have been Construction News, I'm not entirely sure. I then fed all of that into the AI, and the AI, I told it to produce a story in the style, and you could literally say this, I would like it generated in the style of a TV news report. And the first iteration that came back, the content of it, which I have checked and verified, checked it against the 3 sources that I used originally to make sure the AI hadn't freaked out. But not only had it condensed the story and put it in the right order and everything else, it had even suggested where images belonged. If it were a real news report, that the presenter in the studio would at that point hand over to the correspondent out in the field. At this point, there would be a transition and we'd move to another image or another bit of video. It did everything. But the source of it is 100%, I can assure you, 100% human, and it will not make it onto this screen or any other screen until I am 100% sure that it's kosher. But it is a very good point, and I do think, given the fact that we live in an age of deepfakes and everything else, I had to go through quite a long process training that AI to sound like me, including I have given it. I had to sign a waiver that said I was happy for it to be used, and there's security checks and various other bits and pieces. But I have basically trained that. I've fed it with 4 hours of my podcasts. I would imagine the AI was extremely bored at the end of the 4 hours, but I fed it 4 hours of me speaking, and it's taken that to be able to generate my voice. It's a very secure system. There's two-factor verification and all the things that go with it. But if somebody were to hack into my machine, they could produce something that sounds so much like me. To give you an example, my wife went out yesterday morning. I played that for her when she came back, and she stood there and went, "What?" I said, "That's not me." And she laughed. We took it. Obviously, it's you. I said, "No, listen again." It was only when I said inquiry, she was like, that you don't. Yeah, exactly. That's how good it is. So, we're working on it. Watch this space. We are all fleas living on the same dog. It's no good shampooing our end and expecting the whole dog to be clean. And yes, it was my gripe of the day. I'm going to use that again. My daughter, my youngest daughter, used an expression the other day, and I'm dying for an opportunity to use it. I said something to her that was work related, and she responded, "It's not my circus, and they're not my monkeys." Anybody else ever come across that? Because that is an absolute corcoran expression. I just need the right circumstance to actually use it now. Yeah, good point. Why now do this warning? Thing I've been wondering if they have something bigger than COVID coming in future. There was no issues on a warning as it all happened. Yeah. Particularly given all that was going on during COVID, we had alerts through the NHS app, or those of you or those of us that signed up to it did. Is this we were caught unawares by COVID, and therefore we need to test the system to be absolutely prepared next time? Or is there something lurking in the background? Plantworks says thank you. Dan Cullen, how do you think Plantworks is doing on the promotion front? Good question. I'm seeing it a lot, but this is me. Obviously, I'm not speaking for Dan. Dan, I'll leave you to answer for yourself. But I've certainly seen plenty of Plantworks about. Gary Muirhead has just said, I see Plantworks is also on TikTok. Go where the audience is. And if the audience is on TikTok, go there. Why do these shows not open on weekends when more people are available and don't need to take time off work? Some of them do. There is a Saturday opening on ConExpo. There's a Saturday opening at Balmer as well. Does Intermat have a Saturday? May do. I can't remember. It may do. But it's that thing, isn't it? Would I like a Saturday at Plantworks? Sure, of course I would. But then you're expecting all the exhibitors and the organisers and all the staff that go there to basically give up part of their weekend. Yes, it would be convenient. Yes, it would be very handy. Is that fair? Possibly not. It's like leaving it to the last minute and thinking, I need a pint of milk. I'll go out on a Sunday morning, which means that the local supermarket needs to stay open on a Sunday just because I'm too bloody stupid to buy my milk on a Saturday. Let's have a look at Peter McKenna, our friend. Sick Note is in the house. Morning, Peter. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Hope you're fit and well. I hope you're fitter and weller. Not sure that's a word. Very good. And if you want to post me flyers, I can put in local shops in Watford for you and on sites. I'm on to help get you more advertising. Send me a post. I can put on my groups too. Very good of you, Dan. In actual fact, I mean, if Plantworks have got any regular stuff that they're sending out, obviously we've got our video. I could play it for you. I may play it for you. In fact, why don't I play it for you? It's sat here doing nothing. I'll come back after this. There you are. And if anybody is in any doubt about how you register for Plantworks, look over in the chat because I've just posted the link to that too. I have a button for it. Mick Norton, wouldn't AI be a dangerous feature if you asked it to say make comparisons of 3 different manufacturers' equipment types? I've done that. It didn't work. It can compare. So if I were to say, give me the breakdown of the differences between a JCB, a CAT, and a Hydromech backhoe loader. For one thing, it's best at working on historic data. So if there is a latest generation CAT, JCB, or Hydromech backhoe loader, it may not be bang up to date. So that's one thing. The other thing, it's good at, it would be able to say, that one's got a 50 kilowatt engine, that one's got a 48, and that one's got a 52. They could figure that out. But actual comparisons, no, it's not up to that yet. But bear in mind, this is first public iteration of that AI. It's only going to get better. And going back to, I mentioned our roving robot reporter, Reg, earlier. I was using an AI to produce that, obviously just punching in a script into a voice, a text-to-voice generator, which was quite good. But it clearly sounded like a robot, which is why we employed the Reg idea. But now, aside from the fact, and I'm fairly sure I can teach it that I say inquiry rather than inquiry, once we get over that, I could quite easily do an entire broadcast. And think about it from an audio podcast. I mean, with that, I still have to add images and transitions and stuff like that. So there's still some work to be done. But from a podcast point of view, for example, obviously there's been the news this morning, the full details of exactly what the reasoning behind the bans of the 3 directors involved in the collusion that was investigated by the Competition and Markets Authority. I am writing a script for that, and at some point I'm going to have to sit down and record that. If I were just doing a podcast, that podcast would already be up because that script exists. I could literally press the button and that podcast would be generated in my voice or something very, very close to it. It will make us faster, more responsive. I will promise, and even to the point when we launch that new evening show, I'm literally going to have running across the bottom, powered by AI. I want it to be clear that it is AI that is generating a good proportion of that. I want everybody to understand exactly what it is that we're doing. But it is that good. It really is. If I had a hoodie, t-shirts, I'd wear around advertising for there you are. There's Dan Cullen on the scrounge for some workwear with the Plantworks branding. Have you not won something Plantworks related, Dan? I'm fairly sure you must have done by now. Mick, it does it on Facebook Lives and is comical at best. Not sure what that's about. There you are. Exhibitors don't support a weekend show. I think that is a key. I've been on several sides of the exhibition thing. Back when I was at Contract Journal and Plant Manager Journal, obviously we owned the SED exhibition. And we, as an editorial team, used to travel up on the Monday up to initially Whipsnade when I first joined, but then ultimately to Milton Keynes and what have you. We'd travel up on the Monday and we'd be there until basically closing on Thursday. Some of us would stay over and travel back home on the Friday, but some of us would travel back home on the Thursday. By the time you've done that, for one thing, I generally had no voice because I'd spent 3 days just talking non-stop. Foot tired, you've had enough and everything else. If you're an exhibitor, and I've been an exhibitor as well, exactly the same thing. Only if you're an exhibitor, the chances are you may well have been there the weekend before, setting things up and making sure that the stand is all hunky-dory and everything else. People do have lives, and as much as I'd like to go around and kick some tyres on a Saturday, I don't blame the manufacturers and the exhibitors for saying, no, actually, Thursday, that'll be me done. I'm going to go home and see the wife, just a reminder what it is I look like. Exhibition centres cost a premium at the weekend, and most have their own events on. That's another good point from our friend Peter. There is the link to the Plantworks registration, should you need it. Fuzzy tummy feeling every time we see this. I'm guessing they're not talking about my my face. I think they're talking about the video, but please, we're going to be playing it between now and the opening of the show. We may even play it after the show has opened, so keep an eye out for that. The reason these things are on in the week, so it attracts mostly people that are genuinely interested, not just going to fill their weekend. They do it with auctions too. Personally, I'd rather it was on over a weekend and pay a high ticket price for entry. Yeah, it really is. Exhibitions really are one of those. You can't please all the people all the time. It really is as simple as that, I think. Let's go for that one. Well, that was different watching on LinkedIn. Good, glad to hear it. I would much prefer the earthy delivery of Mark Anthony to the whims of a Chinese algorithm dictating AI. Earthy delivery. I think that's a kind of a posh way of saying he sounds like he's making it up as he goes along, which I generally am. Now, any news on this day-long show going? £100. Yeah, we are. For those of you that weren't here last week, we've been talking about the idea, or I've been talking about the idea, prompted by Gary Muirhead, who quite clearly hates me. We've been talking about the idea of doing a marathon show. Our previous record was about 2 hours and 1 minute. I'd like to do a 3-hour show. I'd like to do a 4-hour show. That whole conversation on Friday last week with our 500th show really grew legs, to the point where I think we had pledges of £200 to charity to fund me to do it. There is only one thing now standing in my way. Two things. The biggest thing standing in my way is to find an appropriate date upon which to do it. Now, one thing that I do have, and I realise this is a long way off, but my wife is off to Greece with my youngest daughter in September. As I say, I know it's a long way off. If you could wait till September, I won't have nagging wife next door telling me it's time for me to take a break, or to take a tablet, or to have lunch, or whatever it might be. If you could wait till September, we could do it and I could go untroubled and everything else. The only other thing standing in my way is basically filling the day with content. Now obviously we can pull together video that you've seen, video that you haven't seen, and just do it that way. What I was thinking was that we take a subject or a couple of subjects per hour, possibly with guests, possibly without, and we basically, okay, let's take let's take an hour on women in construction, and we do from 11 till 12 on women in construction. We get a couple of ladies to talk along about their experience, good, bad and indifferent. After that hour, we play a transition, and the next hour is devoted to technology in construction. I don't know, I'm making this up as I go along, as I often do. And then we do an hour, possibly with guests, possibly without. We do an hour on that, and we just do that through the day. The point of the guests, obviously, is to safeguard my voice, but it's also, I think, to give others an opportunity to actually talk about what it is that's going on in the market, and would allow me to go and take a pee break, basically. So if that's kind of thing you're after, please let me know, either in the chat or over on our voicemail system, speakpipe.com/demolition news. Love to hear from you. Now, truck and tractor manufacturers manage to get the weekend truck and farm shows on weekends. How are construction manufacturers any different? It's a will thing. I think it really is as simple as that. Craig Williams, I personally think Plantworks advertising media has been very good so far. I 100% agree. You could do a whole day at Plantworks. You won't be short of content, maybe on the Thursday. Just a thought. Yep, there is only one thing that would prevent me from doing that. We did broadcast on and off throughout the day at FutureWorks. Was that last year? I know it was snowing. Was that last year? It must have been last year. I'm sure it was. We did a whole day at FutureWorks, which is exactly the same venue, and I have to say that the internet connection was not as good as I needed it to be. Yes, it was March 2022. Thank you very much indeed. It was, we lost connection once during the day, and then it completely cut out. Literally, my last broadcast of the day, there is probably footage somewhere of me saying something like, and the next subject is darkness. That was never revisited because I literally couldn't get back on. And yes, FutureWorks was bloody freezing. To give you an idea, we had the benefit of an outdoor studio. I was in a porta cabin, but it was fully heated, very environmentally friendly. We had Wi-Fi connectivity provided by Plinks as a backup. We had all mod cons and everything else. And my plan basically was to be in there all day. And my son Fred and Peter Haddock were out and about, and they were coming back and feeding me bits that I could put on the show as we went through the day. And at one point, I was between broadcasts, and I thought I'm going to go for a bit of a stroll, see what's going on out there. Opened the steel door, and there was a blizzard taking place outside. So I closed the steel door and had nothing more to do with it. I didn't see the outdoors until it was time to go home. I'd love to do that from Plantworks. I'd love to do a day-long show from Plantworks, and we could literally have people queued at the door. You know, we'll get the matey from JCB, we'll get the guy from Komatsu, the guy from Thwaites, whatever it might be, and get them queuing at the door, and they could come on. If I could be assured that we could do that with a 100% reliable Wi-Fi or broadband connection. And unfortunately, this is quite heavy duty. We are actually broadcasting this, believe it or not. We're now broadcasting this in 4K, which hopefully means that the images you're seeing are very, very good indeed. But it does mean that we didn't need an upload speed. Download speed is not a big deal for us, although I've got about 300 meg here. But the upload speed is ideally 10 megabytes per second. It's pretty demanding, and trying to do that outdoors is quite hard. Plantworks have just said, chat to Plinks. I'm already chatting to Plinks. I actually spoke to Jenny at Plinks just last week about possibly doing something with that. So keep an eye on this, and we will do something. As I say, if I could wave a magic wand and do a day-long show from anywhere, Plantworks would be the place I'd do it from, even though it would mean that I wouldn't get to see as much of the show as I would like. I'd happily go and sit myself away in a studio, but let's see how it all pans out. Gary Muirhead, I remember one time doing Scott Plant on the Incon stand, and we had a guy across from us who refused to work on Sunday because it was a day of rest, and he went to church on Sunday. No working on the Lord's Day. Not a believer myself, but the one thing I will say about religion, when you really scratch away at the surface, and I'm talking predominantly about the Christian religion, about which I know nothing at all. All I would say is the Bible, pretty good book, sold quite well over the years. But if you scratch away all of the religion bit, most of what's contained within the Bible, pretty good sense. You know, don't be a dick. Is kind of the message. They didn't write it quite that way, but don't be a dick is part of it. And the idea of no working on the Lord's Day, you know, maybe somebody who wrote that, whoever that was, maybe somebody just had the foresight to think, you know, in the future, we could have things called workaholics who will quite happily play around with something called AI on a Sunday afternoon when they should have their feet up and their nose in a roast dinner. Maybe we should mandate that people have a day off for the Lord's Day. Maybe I need to become a believer because I don't do the Lord's Day. Don't do much in the way of rest, to be perfectly honest. Fabulous, says Plantworks Construction Exhibition. As AI can work endlessly without breaks, why not use it to replace the work from home snowflakes, aka the civil service? One of the things that I think is remarkable, but bearing in mind what I do for a living is very, very specific. Obviously, I write and broadcast and stuff on a very specific subject. But, for example, if I were to decide to do a podcast on, my article today, I didn't use AI for this, funnily enough, but if I were to do something more in depth on the number of fatalities experienced within the construction industry, maybe the farming industry, mining, quarrying, and all of I could go to the HSE website and try and find their last set of stats, which is in tabular form and is very difficult to read. It's also even harder to find comparisons between 2022, 2021 and back to maybe the 1970s to give it breadth and everything else. I could ask AI to do that, and within about 4 seconds, it would give me exactly what I needed. And it's that good. As I say, bearing in mind I do have a very specific use case for it. I can say to it, you know, find the fatal accident statistics for construction, mining, quarrying, and farming for the past 40 years, including statistics for each year, detailing which industry sector had the highest number of deaths in each year, and so on down the line. And it would come back with the results. I could then say to it, actually, I would prefer that in bullet point form. It would turn it into bullet points. I could then say, actually, I'm planning to turn all of this into a YouTube video. Could you turn this into a script? It would turn it into a script. And I could then say, actually, my YouTube videos are pretty informal, actually. Could you do it in a more conversational style? And it would do that. It's that good. It really is that good. And yes, it is a new toy. Much like my microphone, much like my splendid new sign, it's a new toy. And I love playing with it. But there will be cases where it will make my life a million times easier. And if we can, by harnessing AI, I can deliver to you on a nightly basis. You know, don't bother trying to trawl through Construction News, Construction Index, Construction Inquirer, Demolition News, Earth Movers Magazine, Digger Man Blog, and all of these different titles. Rather than you having to trawl through all of those, we have pulled together 3, 4, or 5 of the very, very, very key stories from each of those sources, and we've condensed it and we're going to present it to you. So all you need to do is just reach for your mobile phone, hit the play button, and it will play that day's news. You will be bang up to date in 10 minutes or less. And if AI can allow me to do that without me having to find a 25th hour in the day, I think that's not a bad thing. Do I still have reservations about AI? Of course I do. Of course I do. Security being one of them. But there are times, and listen, I'm not sitting here saying I've invented it. You think, you know, if you've gone to somewhere new for work today, if you're on a site you've never been to before, chances are you may well have followed your satellite navigation system. What is your satellite navigation system? It's AI. Our mate Vlad is over in the chat. Good afternoon, good day to you, should I say, over on YouTube. Thank you for joining us again. You arrived very late, but you can watch us on catch up. Isn't it unbelievable that we had almost 40 construction companies gone into liquidation in a month? Should I tell you something, Dan? And this wasn't AI that I used for this. One of the things that I had in mind for that new nightly show was a section called Administration Watch, which I realise is in very poor taste, but administrations, we all need to be kept abreast of it because there is a possibility that we may not get paid in the event of somebody further up the food chain going into administration. So I think it's an important point to cover. And I was going to set aside a part of the show, maybe not every day, but on a regular basis, to cover those that have gone into administration. So I checked back on Construction Index and Construction Inquirer, and it would be too big a section. You may recall that back at the beginning of the year, it was about January time, there was some financial guru had predicted that we may lose as many as 6,000 construction companies during the course of 2023 to liquidations and administrations. And at the time, 6,000 sounded preposterous. 40 in a month. Now, I realise that's going to fall a long way short of 6,000, but we ain't out the woods yet. You know, this is still going on, and when you see the fallout, and also the domino effect of that kind of thing. You know, we all know what happened when Carillion went pop. It had a ricochet right the way down the supply chain. They went, some in the middle clung on by the skin of their teeth, but some right at the very sort of bottom of the supply chain didn't make it. And we've got exactly the same situation again. So yes, 40 is unbelievable. As I say, still well short of the 6,000 that was predicted, but too many for me to cover. So again, I am planning to cover those administrations, but the plan now is I will probably pick the biggest to feature and possibly mention the others in passing, or I'll get AI to do that for me. But yes, absolutely remarkable figures, and it remains a very big worry. It really does. Despite the presence of AI, and despite the new look show, and despite the fact that we're all hyper efficient, I haven't done a show of less than an hour in about 2 weeks now. For that, I can only apologise. We're at an hour and 7 minutes, which is way too long for me to be talking to you and interrupting your days. So everybody, please go and have a fantastic day. I am going to say thank you very much indeed for the team at Plantworks for tuning in today. You are more than welcome here whenever you see fit. I will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. as per usual. And yes, we've got some other stuff coming up. We are planning an evening show for the 10th of May. I'll tell you more about that when we get closer and I've got the details planned. And it is later this week. It is Workers' Memorial Day, where we basically remember those that have died in service in various industries. All things being equal, I am hoping this afternoon to speak to the widow of a guy who was killed on a demolition site a couple of years ago. Not looking forward to it. It's not Natalie Huxtable, if anybody's wondering if it is. It's not Natalie, it's somebody else. Not looking forward to it. Completely out of my comfort zone, but bearing in mind all that's going on, and bearing in mind we lost another member of the demolition fraternity last week, just a couple of days after there was a £1 million civil settlement for another demolition death. I think it is one of those things that we do need to be covering as much as we possibly can. I read AI is now being used by schools and colleges for individual pupil student reports. Yeah, it's I would say it's exactly the same as the old pocket calculators of old. So long as you know what to put in, what you get out is dead reliable. And if bearing in mind the way that not the way that children are taught, but the way that schools are measured via Ofsted and stuff like that, everything is down to a percentage score or a number score or whatever it might be. To actually punch that into an AI, and then it will identify where the shortcomings in their ability, the individual ability of pupils is, where they might need additional assistance, where they're quite clearly up to speed and everything else. AI will do that in a heartbeat. And bearing in mind, I live with a teacher. My eldest son's girlfriend is a teacher. She lives with us now. I know how much, she works a full day. She's out of here. She leaves here, literally as I'm sitting at my desk, she goes out behind me at 6:30 in the morning, and she won't be back home again until about 6 o'clock tonight, at which point she has something to eat and then sits there marking. So if AI can take an hour off her day, is that such a bad thing? Particularly as all it is drawing up scores, quite possibly for Ofsted to tick a box. Wouldn't be a bad thing, I don't think. If anybody else has got anything like that they'd like to discuss tomorrow, please let us know. If you have a gripe for tomorrow, even better still, I will tell you one last time. And I'm fairly sure I have a thing for this, do I not? I do. There you are. Leave us a voicemail message at speakpipe.com/demolition news. Thus far, we've only had 2. I'd like more. I'd like lots more. One of the things I've got in mind, again, looking ahead, I'd love to do as part of our marathon show, or possibly just as a standalone, a Q&A show. But I would like your cues, your questions, to come in the form of MP3s that you can record right there. So I can play them on the show, and then I can give you my answers, or the answers that I've dragged out of whoever needs to give me the answer. Please start using it. It would be a great benefit, and it'd make the show better, I think. The very reason that we've signed up to SpeakPipe is purely because you guys at the moment, you're a very key and a very active part of the show, but I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to actually hear you rather than seeing you typing. Let's hear you. Let's hear your voices, and let's get Gary's Scottish accent on the line. Let's get Dan Cullen's Irish accent on the line. Let's get Jim Turner on the line. Maybe he can play us a tune while he's doing it. So yes, speakpipe.com/demolition news. But until tomorrow, everybody, have a fantastic day. I hope the weather improves where Ken Hatter is, and I'll be back here, same time, same place tomorrow. Till then, everybody have a fantastic day. All the best.